So then, we are back with the modern understandings from the Renewed Covenant from the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of Israel, from the prophets of old, giving us then the understanding of the time of the end. Yershiyahu then spoke many prophecies during his time, and have in mind, Yershiyahu was hated by Israel. Israel during his time, they hated him. They hated him so much in the leaders of the people of the law, they had sawn him in half. Because Yershiyahu was speaking the truth and was speaking the words of Yahweh, and the words of Yahweh at the time was against the government of Israel. And he was sawn in half. He was brought near the river, and there he was stretched out, and then each of the people of the law on each side of the lumber saw, and he was sawn in half. Gives you then the understanding of how these people hated him, because he was speaking the truth. So when you then hear the words of Yahweh through the mouth of the prophets, when you get angry and upset, this is precisely what you yourself would do to Yershiyahu during his time. However, only because you are a murderer and you don't understand the prophecies does not mean the prophecies don't take place. So then, understanding the deceit, or the time of the deceit, people, most of us were born during this time, and there are always mockers and scornful people that do deserve a bit of teaching, so they can update their information regarding the time of the end. So then Yershiyahu spoke many words, and he was then heard many times by then the Sanhedrin. During the time, they listened to him. And back in those days, the council then, they would come together, and when a person would come to the gates, and then it would say a person had a word from Yahweh, then they would put on the agenda, and the person would show up before the council. And they would diligently take notes of this person, and then they would wait until part of these prophecies would then come true. However, during the time of Yershiyahu, there were many prophecies he spoke, but they could not prove it. Yet, most of what Yershiyahu spoke was related to our time. Because if we read the 61st chapter, as we should, and you also should, since we came from nations where then both of them are broken, we find the Greco country broken, Italy is broken. Both of these countries, they came together and they came up with a scandalized scripture. And we understand also the translation in our English was then translated wrongly. So each of us must do our homework, so then we can understand what the scriptures are saying to us. In Israel at the moment, they also hate Yershiyahu. There is no distinction from the time of Yershiyahu himself. Because Yershiyahu was speaking of centuries ahead of time. So when he was speaking then, Yershiyahu, the 61st chapter, speaking of the renewed of the cities. Many people, when they read these, because they are so much in a high pace in these postmodern junky ways of the modern times, they read the scripture as they read a magazine. They don't do the homework anymore. They are not from the Hebraic line. They don't understand in layers. They don't understand the Torah. In fact, the Torah is abolished. And then, however, when they read, they don't read in times and seasons, as Shaul the Shaliach told them to read in times and seasons. They don't understand that the scriptures are for only the set apart, 99.5%, and there are remarks only given to the Gentiles because they were in a relationship with the set apart. Yet these Gentiles, they make themselves laws where then Yahweh has nothing to do with it. Set of laws made of each country around the world, because the 10 laws of God, those are not for the world. Those are for the holy cities. The world can do whatsoever they want as long as they understand there is a holy city. But then most of us were born during the time of deceit of the 1,000 years of Nahashatan, and we understand ended with the ending of the covenant of death set up in 2001, and then in '08 had it then destroyed, and then in an instant became then the time of reduction plus the time of restoration. That's where we are at. But then people, they try to use those laws around the world in each country, trying to be some sort of a country with some decency where Yahweh gave to his people. They are not bound to be in those laws. They did themselves, because what Shaul the Shaliach did, he simply gave directives to those people who were engaged in relationship with the set apart, and he could not leave those outside of the relationship. As far as Gentile living is concerned, Yahweh did not give them any laws. So then, from the Creator's viewpoint, he first doesn't have any expectation of any nation trying to obey him, because he never gave them laws. What he gave them were only those people related with the set apart, and then they received some remarks. But over the centuries, nations of the world decided to make laws for themselves, what were simple remarks. That's why 99.5% of the entire scripture is for the holy cities. So then when we read the understanding of Yershiyahu, then there is a section of it. 61:4, and they built deserted places, and these were then desolated from the former times. They shall be raised up, and they shall renew the cities that were deserted, being desolated for generations. What kind of understanding can you have from this prophecy? What kind of a city is he speaking of? What is the most important reference point of Yahweh? Coming with his holy city. That's the entire understanding. So when you read in this prophecy, and also Yershiyahu 28 or 1:8, and many other prophecies, you find on that day, or when the day comes, when vengeance then is final, autumn feast is completed, age is closed, then he has the pleasure of presenting from Yahweh heaven the new Jerusalem. As you would watch then a movie, what do you think the movie then presents? Gives you then the studio from where the movie came from, and then you watch the film. What do you think Yahweh then is presenting? So then when he makes a reference of the prophecy in Yershiyahu, when you read it, he's absolutely having in mind his, in quote, movie, or his holy city, then presented. That's the whole aim of having the holy city as then the city of Yahweh. However, if you are a person not acquainted with the Torah, you don't know who Yahweh is, you can read in Yershiyahu, the 66th chapter, where then you find sections of it already in the new earth, refurbished. When this age of ours then is completely gone, and then there are sections of it and a layer of the new earth stating, then they shall be planting vineyards, and then the thieves would not come and destroy and steal. And they would come to the mountain to worship Yahweh during the times of the seasons. What do you think this has for us? Is indicating the holy mikras, they are going to be in place. Now, if you don't like the holy mikras, you don't like the Torah, you don't like the prophets, you don't understand the importance of the Shabbat, what are you going to be doing then in the new earth, since there is no heaven to go to? Because what we are reading in the 61st chapter here is stating the renewing of the cities. Speaking of the cities of his Son. Yahweh came, He established then the first service, and He was in charge. Then He delegated responsibility to His Son. His Son would continue on in the Holy of Holies, but then He was given the authority in heaven and the earth. And what Yershiyahu is stated in the 61st chapter is the city is laid waste for so many centuries. So Yershiyahu is given us then after the 1,000 years rule of Nahashatan, where then the restoration and then the reduction of time was at the same time simultaneously then taking place. So when you are then seriously reading and studying it, you find he's not speaking of the vicinities of Jerusalem. He's speaking of sets of cities. That's why when you read the 66th chapter, you already reading when this age is then completely destroyed and the new earth then is already then built up. Those who were in the Messiah were erased, the meal then is eaten, and they are going to work. And they shall plant vineyards, and then thieves would not come and steal. So then some people are so mystical, they think they are going to heaven. But there is no heaven to go to. You are made for the earth. That's why when you read the 66th chapter, then you read a section of it where you are going to work. You're going to have vineyards and you're going to take care of animals. But then each person was going to be doing this in pleasure. Pleasure of doing the work as per the instructions. And then coming to the mountain in the holy times and then worship Yahweh as He deserves. Now, if you don't like the Torah, you don't like the prophets, you don't like to read the scripture from the Hebraic culture, you don't like then the celebration of the lunar view every month, you don't understand the barley aviv when the starting of the year, and you like a scandalized scripture, what are you going to be doing then in the new earth? There is no heaven to go to. You begin to read Revelation regarding heaven to go to, but then how you're going to measure those 1,000 years in another 1,000? It doesn't make any sense. The scandalized scripture, the name already states, is a scoundrel. It doesn't fit. There are so many people involved in areas where they read Zechariah 1:4, where then the Messiah comes and He sets then His sandal in one side and in the other side and splits the Mount of Olives in two. They don't even understand what it means. That's the same layer of understanding of Yershiyahu explaining to us in the 66th chapter, already giving the after fact. A bit prior of this time, you find then a section of it related with when the earth is restored. And then He comes, Yahweh Himself. But then the heathen or Gentiles, they don't understand what Yahweh He is speaking of, because they don't understand the times and seasons. It's not Yahweh the Son coming down from heaven and placing then the city on the Mount of Olives and it's split in two. It's not Yahweh the Son, it's Yahweh the Creator. He sets down the holy city. It's His city, the capital of the world. But then, for some reason, they mixed up then Yahweh the Creator with Yahweh the Son, and then at the great combat at the end, they made such a huge confusion and junk out of it. It's not even easy explaining the junky conclusion of this. And then at the time of the end, what was it? The time of the end, then during the war, and then the armies would go against Jerusalem, and then the Messiah would show up in heaven, and then he would then stop the war, and then he would then later come back and set his sandal on either side of the mountain, would split in two, and then it comes. It doesn't make sense. Try to explain yourself, get a microphone and try to speak these for yourself, and then you begin to ponder. It doesn't make any sense. Do a test. Read your scripture, whatsoever language you have. Get a microphone, speak, and then you hear yourself speaking. You find yourself being ridiculous. Hear yourself speaking of the scripture. But don't be only a mocker of other people. Because if you are mocking other people, means you understand the scripture 100%. However, take a microphone and then record yourself and hear what you say regarding the time of the end. You yourself can't hear it. When you begin to hear what you speak regarding the time of the end, not even yourself can stand it. So don't be quick of mocking other people then, until you listen to yourself and then what you hear from yourself, from what you understand. When you are familiar with it, and then you can teach other people and share with them, then you'll be able maybe of having a talk with somebody else. That's how badly twisted the situation is. And there are thousands of religions speaking, then the Messiah coming back and then halting the war. How can you halt the war? Yahweh then said precisely he would destroy this planet. Whatsoever is within this planet is going to be destroyed. But then for some reason they want to take parts of it not, and then they disregard the Shabbat, and then they want to have a bit of life with Nahashatan, and then back to Yahweh, and they don't even know Yahweh anymore. So then the set apart were then the people engaged in understanding these factors and then explaining these to the Gentiles. Now, how are these establishments are going to continue teaching so much junk? Even sometimes these so-named pastors, teachers, and religious people, when they speak, it doesn't make any sense. At the end, when the war against Jerusalem, and then the Messiah comes and halts the war, what does it mean, the Messiah coming and halting the war for? Yahweh said he's going to destroy it, and then comes the Son and halts it. You don't understand what Yahweh is speaking of. But then, the Messiah that these people understand is not Yahweh. He's Nahashatan, mesmerizing and brainwashing them. Yahweh said he's going to destroy it. He's going to destroy it. How can they come up with a Savior, then it comes in the skies, and then he halts the war? Zechariah 1:4 states then, later, when the earth is then restored, after the fact. But then they don't understand in layers. They try to understand in flat surfaces, as then pagans understand in flat surfaces. Pagans are ignorant. They don't understand in layers. That's why then Shaliach Shaul said at the end they would concoct for themselves teachers with itching ears, teaching the doctrines of demons. Where they simply don't understand. If these people, they are very religious, only take a microphone and record yourself. Verify how far you can go by reading what you speak and then hear it. And this excuse of, oh, nobody knows what's coming in the future, that's a cop-out junk. Because the Messiah always indicated his people then what would be taking place in the future. That's why people must understand it then in layers. Because pagans, they don't understand in layers. They try to understand in flat surfaces, and comes out the most strange and the craziest understanding of the time of the end. Then during this time, there are these lunatics with this 2012 calendar scaring people around, and then they're going to bunkers, and then they buy these huge place in the mountain where they are storing grain. If there is a disaster in the future, nonsense. A completely total nonsense. Why are they spending money in this huge bunker over there for grain? Next month, nothing is going to take place. You're going to get up in the morning, nice sunshine, or rain, or the snow. Going to work, doing the main day, and coming back home. On the 22nd, you're going to work. On the 23rd, you're going to work. Nothing is going to take place. Because it's not part of the Creator's calendar. So then they so named the church, they became a simple charity organization. That's what they can do. They can only do charity. They can't speak of God anymore. What they speak makes no sense. Because they should be giving credit at least for the charity part of it. Organizing people and finding work for people, and then fixing cars for people, and then finding ways of helping other people. Oh, this is great. But then when they speak of God, it makes no sense. Because they have a God so confused, they can't even say precisely what's taking place in the future. That's why it is the utmost importance for the holy cities to return. And this time Israel is cornered. They won't get out of this. This time, not this time. The Arab League, they all are already uniting themselves, and this time they're going to get their way. And then the only hope for Israel is the finding of the holy city. It's the only hope of Israel. And they are going to sense they are going to be leveled. It's only a sense. They're going to sense in the spirit after the Arab League are together and strong and decisive in what they want. Israel is going to have a sense of being leveled. It is very dreadful, but comes from Yahweh, because the time is rebuilding of the old cities. This is what the Yershiyahu told us. So Yahweh then said, and they built deserted places, and these places former desolated in old times, they shall be raised up, and they shall be renewed. those places desolated for generations. He is speaking precisely what Yahweh, the Messiah, spoke. Go therefore around the world and form holy cities. Israel is cornered. They won't come out of this. Our president is not interested in their wars. He is interested in finding jobs for us, and he's going over there doing hunting, job hunting amongst the nations, and he's making deals for us, and he wants more trade and so on and so forth, doing what a president should be doing. The maximum we can expect from our president are these words. You people should then be rebuilding yourselves and get to work. Your religion is only bringing you destruction. Precisely what Yahweh would say. Because it's time of rebuilding. And the longer it takes for the holy seed to be found, the sign to be found, then the seed put together, the worse it gets. So then Yahweh has said, and they built then these desolate places, and these being desolated from former times, they shall raise up, and they shall renew these deserted places from generations before. Generations and generations. Because we are speaking the cities. Came from the city of the desert, and then when Yahweh then makes the statement, when the day comes, then the vengeance then is given, justice then is satisfied, then he comes. Yahweh presents the holy city. So the only hope of Israel in maintaining itself is by finding the holy site in the land of Kush. Make sure the holy city then is built as per Moses' instructions, with the updates from the records of Hebrews for the second tabernacle services, and then from there other cities shall come, and they are going to be praying for Israel, and this is what's going to maintain Israel standing up. If Israel does not do it, they are going to have a dreadful sense of being leveled. Those are Yahweh's prophecies, not mine, yours, anybody else. Those were words already spoken centuries ago. We are only refreshing ourselves and understanding what those mean, so then we can prepare ourselves. Those are not my prophecies. No one's person's ministry or anybody else. No president, prime minister of Israel, anybody else. Those were prophecies spoken of centuries ago. And they are as true as the news of today. So then, this time, Israel is truly cornered. They have no way of escaping. And don't be threatening other people, because the more they do, the more comes against them. Yahweh has a very strong policy. Don't do what you should not be doing during the time, because it goes back to you. And with the same measure you use, it is measured back to you. Because the time of vengeance is not yet. So when the Messiah Yahweh was in the earth, he was very smart. He knew what he was speaking of. But he said to his people, don't be sending out vengeance to people, because it comes back to you, and with your measure is measured back to you. The only solution for Israel is finding the holy site, and then making sure the holy city in the land of Kush is built as per instructions of Moses. If this doesn't get done, the dreadful understanding of being leveled then is coming.